That's one small step for man.
AI rebels face.
Giant leap for mankind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AI Rebels podcast. As always, I am your co-host, Spencer.
And I'm your other co-host, Jacob. And we're here with Sreedhar Peddineni. He is a serial successful entrepreneur. He's co-founded Host Analytics, which was acquired by Vector Capital, co-founded Gainsight, which I'm sure most of you have heard of, acquired by Vista Equity Partners, now building Go-to-Market Buddy, GTM Buddy, which is an AI native sales enablement platform, which has already, you've had a Series A funding round, right, Sridhar?
That's right. That's right, Jacob.
Which is a huge milestone as far as this life cycle of a startup goes. That's very exciting. Sridhar, thank you for coming on. We can't wait to get into it.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacob and Spencer. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, really excited to get into this. To kind of start off, we like to ask people, what was your path into AI? What led you from your previous interests into this industry?
Okay. So, as I was telling you earlier, I'm an old guy. I'm in my early 50s now. So, been at it for 25 plus years, 26, 27, lost the count now. So, I've been talking about, believe it or not, I've been talking about AI for a long time, different names and so on. So, in my first company, Host Analytics, this was like now seems like a Paleolithic era right now. But this was 2000 and the organizations, businesses were moving from on-premises software to cloud. Mm-hmm. Software as a service, SaaS, which we take for granted today, was still a new thing. That's when I really started my journey in the tech industry, right? So there, getting the people to move to the cloud itself was a big deal. I won't bore you with all those details. But back in those days, like budgeting and planning, everybody does budgeting and organizational financial planning on spreadsheets. Right. And we used to talk about predictive analytics back in the day. This was 2005, 6 is when we started talking about it. Right. And a predictive analytics is, okay, you have your budget drivers, you put in some assumptions in terms of your revenue growth, headcount, blah, blah, blah. And you have your Microsoft Excel's goal seek function in terms of like iterating and building out how the different line items look like, right? So that was a big AI story for us back then. This was 2005, 2006. And that was truly something that was powerful, but because people were using it. There was no AI. It's a very rule-based thing. You have some input drivers. Based on that, you have formulas that builds out various scenarios for you. Okay. I even have a patent along with my teammates for that capability that we had built. We called it simulation engine. Okay. It's funny when I reflect back in terms of where we are today versus where we were then, right?
Yeah.
So as we moved on, like second decade of my entrepreneurial career, building Gainsight, and I'm a product guy at heart. And so the crystal ball that people wanted is that this churn prediction. We're into customer success. Okay, can you give us this crystal ball which can help us predict churn? Okay. Right. So we were getting into that. This was 2013. So it's all well before the current generative AI era, where I started building out our first team of ML AI experts starting to come into the organization, and we started off with Gainsight at the end of the day is a data platform. It's known for the customer success in terms of the value it delivers. The inputs to that is a lot of data that Gainsight is able to ingest. There are a lot of integrations and constructs for crunching the data, calculating stuff, and so on, right? So what we would do is we would calculate and we would create some variables, and then you would slap in a machine learning model on top of it, which would basically classify customers, and these are healthy customers and these are not healthy customers, and so on. A classification model, if you will, right? And that we would say is that, okay, that was in truest sense, it's some level of AI. But it was a very manual effort in terms of all the data processing, feature engineering that went with it. and creation of these forecasting models and so on, only to see that data is dirty. Data is sparse in a lot of cases. With sparse data, if you don't have continuous time series, then you tend to get dirty outcomes, and people would lose trust in that. So it became really more of a rear view mirror in terms of, Gainsight helps you diagnose if a patient is sick. Analogy here being patient being a customer. Based on all the data that we have access to, we can at least hint you that this patient may be sick, this customer needs attention, do something about it.
Yeah.
That was the level of AI effort. And we did some more things also, sentiment analysis, for example. We built purpose-built models. Gainsight has its own capabilities that we had built for surveying customers. CSAT surveys can be done. And there are subjective questions that you would ask. And we could correlate those answers with the personas and position titles and do a sentiment modeling. Okay. Now, in the hindsight, look in 2026, this are like sort of like I don't need to have an AI engineer or a machine learning engineer or a data scientist now. LLMs are able to solve these problems, and they're able to solve these problems pretty well. You don't need these fine-tuned models that we had built painstakingly in today's era.
Yeah.
And the same thing that you're saying, like Gong was really, they did a fantastic job starting in 2014. They built this, really amazing speech-to-text platform that was able to read my Indian accent, if you will, and your I don't know what accent you would call it in Uttar there, but figure out these accents, translate, convert that into a fairly accurate text. That was their thing. They built those fine-tuned models and so on. Now, with what's happening today, overnight it has become commoditized.
Yeah,
all that
completely.
IP that they have built, now it's available for everybody for almost pennies.
It's really a mind-blowing dynamic. Like I share this story a couple times, but like about 3 months before ChatGPT came out, I was annoyed because there was this chat app that I wanted to build, but then I was thinking about the moderation problem, and I was like, man, I really don't want to deal with that. So it prompted me to tweet. I was like, the notoriously easy, problem of teaching a computer to infer semantics from syntax. And then like ChatGPT came out 3 months later. I was like, oh, wait, I guess it was easy. I guess someone out there did this. Well, I better figure out what this is all about.
That's a great story. Yep. We're living through an era like things that we have not seen. I've seen like rise of internet. I'm old enough to see that. Very early usage of internet, rise of social media, usage of the smartphones and social media, multiple things, right? But what I'm seeing in the past few years, mind-boggling. Did not see this level of change any time in my life.
Really?
And what
you'd say even more than the propagation of the internet?
Yep, I believe so. Propagation of internet did change and made a lot of information accessible to people. I'm not trivializing internet at all, but it did not bring up the existential questions that we will be running into in the coming years.
That's so true.
Impacting the broader humanity.
Yeah, I think another aspect here is that AI is one of the first really transformational industrial technologies that is going to be rolling out everywhere all at once, essentially, right?
Yep.
Like previous industrial revolution started in Europe, and then there was kind of like a slow wave roll outwards where, other countries essentially stole techniques and machines and then slowly started their own, right? And then similar thing with the internet where it's like, there was a massive infrastructure push that had to happen in a ton of countries for them to even access the internet. AI, like if you have internet access, you can go download a model right now. You can go to chatgpt.com and use it right now. It's not location gated. I should caveat that because I know that Italy, for example, has some weird laws and things like that. But without, in regards to technology access, like everybody has access. It's really, really kind of humbling in a way.
Yeah. So then what is for example, the internet was the infrastructure that had to be built. What before it was like generally available and also truly before it could truly change the world, essentially. What's crazy is I feel like AI, LLMs have already done that. Like they've changed the world. They're changing the way we're doing things. But then it seems there's this huge rush towards data centers. And is that what's needed for AI to kind of hit its full capabilities? Is just more data centers? This has just kind of been going on in my mind where I'm like, LLMs are so great, but it seems like it's the beginning. It's still so early, and I'm waiting for it to really come into its own. And I can't quite figure out what it is that we need to get there.
Great question. My thoughts on this one, like all of us are figuring these things out. I don't want to come across as preachy at all here. But
no. We want to hear.
The data center question is more about the size of the demand, for the lack of better phrasing, the exponential adoption of AI tools for overnight. ChatGPT has become a replacement for Google for a lot of people.
Right.
Go and ask anybody in the family, how do you use ChatGPT? I stopped going to Google. I ask ChatGPT for everything, from making this recipe to
Even among those who are otherwise anti-AI, oftentimes the sentiment I hear is, I'm anti-AI, but I do find it useful for search. And it's like, oh, okay.
So you're not anti-AI. Yeah.
So the data center demand would come from that in terms of all of humanity switching from Google search to a ChatGPT or even Google search, the AI search mode. Like how many of us are actually scrolling through the results now? The search mode result, that itself is sufficient for most searches that we do. Now, with that volume of all of humanity starting to search for that new way of searching, the demand for data centers is to be expected. And that's going to exponentially grow. And we're still in the beginning stages. That's one perspective. But having said that, I'm also thinking about, okay, are we really leveraging AI to the capabilities that exist today? It's almost like, it seems like we as humanity, if I'm generalizing it a little bit here, if we are moving at a pace of, let's say, 30 miles per hour, the technology evolution it's actually moving at 100 miles an hour. So with every passing week, it almost seems like this where an organization is at an average, maybe one organization might be moving at 50 miles an hour, another organization might be moving at 20 miles an hour. But the pace of advancements with AI is at 100 miles per hour. So the distance between what's possible today with AI versus where we as humanity and as companies are leveraging AI today, that gap seems to be forever widening.
Interesting.
I completely agree. Recently, I'm in the process of kind of rolling out AI usage to my little startup and organization more broadly and teaching people how to use it. And I gave a presentation the other week, and then the day after, I was like, I was feeling kind of down, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I thought through it, and I realized, like, man, I just feel like there is such a massive gap between what I need to teach people about AI, about AI and how to use AI, and what I was able to get across in, the hour and a half that I had, right? Like there's so much, especially those of us who have been working with it at the edge since, the 3.5, ChatGPT 3.5 came out, right? And it's funny to say that as if that makes me a veteran of the AI industry, but anyways.
But it does.
You guys know what I mean. But like there's so many little things and little skills that you build up that you like I don't know how to communicate all of them.
Totally resonates, man. It's something about, okay, I'm a startup founder building a native company, and I'm all about building AI products that I want to sell to companies. Yes, that's the purpose of the company. But when I start looking at internally, this is an initiative I started posting about this publicly. Just the way I'm working with, I was mentioning to you about my kids. One thing that my kids are tired of me talking about AI, by the way. Both of them are entering into their workforce. And one thing that I tell them is that take charge of your own learning of AI. Nobody is
Yes.
out there going to come and teach you. The pace at which
Yes.
things are changing, don't expect a curriculum or a course that you would take that's going to, prepare you for what's coming. You need to be continuously stay at it. Within my own organization, we have seen that we have grown 3x last year. Okay, but
Wow.
headcount stayed flat. We did not increase the headcount.
That's incredible.
And now, when I look at even in a company, part of a large part of that is the unit economics coming into play. Economies of scale at some level,
Right.
and also the how we are leveraging AI.
Mhm.
But even in our company, there is no uniformity in terms of what's the level of AI maturity within our own team. And I
Yeah.
went through exactly what you did. Like, I did a session for my team a few weeks ago. The title was your mission, should you choose to accept it, a pun on Mission Impossible.
Yes.
6 AI challenges in terms of these are the things that you're supposed to be doing. It starts off with we give access to Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, of course, multiple other tools, including GTM Buddy.
Mhm.
Everybody has access to everything. Okay. At this point in time, we're not worried about people overspending on AI or not, because we are not spending as much on the people hiring. I would rather spend money on these tools and want our team to grow in terms of utilizing these tools, right? So
Love
it
that.
starts from if you say Claude, is Claude one thing? As you probably would agree, Anthropic is a company that's making waves now. It's not OpenAI, it's not Google, especially in the business use cases.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was talking to a CRO a few days ago, and his worldview is that OpenAI is number one at 60% market share, and Gemini is 30% plus. Anthropic is this little company with 6% market share. And this was a talk track at Pavilion. Okay, Pavilion, as you know, is like a lot of leaders do get together in round tables and have conversations. If that's the leadership level conversation, I'm lost, sir. I'm lost. What's going on here?
And they're leading the entire and I think this lends to what you were talking about earlier, Sridhar, about what's possible with AI is so far ahead of us right now that, and a lot of it comes down to the leadership. Like if the individuals leading the companies, the organizations aren't opening their minds to new possibilities, no one underneath them can, because it has to go through the corporate ladder. And I know recently we just chatted with someone else a few days ago, and I gave the example of the company I'm working at right now called Nasuni, who actually was acquired by Vista this last year as well. So Vista partners. But they're really, I'm leading the AI and automation initiative in the accounting finance department, which is a funny dynamic because accounting finance typically is risk averse, not necessarily the most innovative at times, because we have our Excel and we love Excel. But we have built a few AI tools now, and we're having to meet with security teams, the engineering team, and like all these different groups. And they're like, wait, hold on. The senior revenue accountant built this tool. And we're like, yeah, and it's great. And it saves us $140,000 a year if we use this tool. And it's opening up these conversations where I feel like it's starting to change like leadership's perspective of like, oh, okay, it might be worth enabling this more with the organization. And how do we build a pipeline for internally developed solutions for Nasuni?
Yeah,
and I think every single organization has to figure out what it means for them, and the leaders have to be on the forefront. And some are, but most are not. So, I mean, like, Sridhar, how do you do it? You're leading a startup. How do you even have time to stay educated and try to stay ahead of it?
To be entirely honest here, probably until about 6 to 9 months ago, I was exactly like every other leader. I'm too busy with too many things going on. that I don't have to. I have a product technical background, so I keep track of what's going on. I have a theoretical understanding of. I always had that in terms of I keep track of it. I follow the announcements and stuff, and I was one of those users who was using ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini for rewriting my emails and help me create a presentation outline and stuff like that, right? And as an alternative to Google search. Then it hit upon me that every roadmap conversation that we have is around AI, and I'm getting disconnected from the reality. Then I made a commitment to myself that every weekend I would pick a problem statement that I'm working towards, and I'm going to do something with AI. It could be something as trivial as you took an example of financial planning, right? 3 months ago, I was at that point, this planning season, beginning of the year, to my board. I need to present the operating plan for 26. Now, that was as good as any. My finance team had come up with two versions of the operating model. Now, that was a good starting point for me. I installed Claude for Excel. And I had questions around in terms of, understand the current financial model and vary the assumptions. Show me the scenario planning. Okay, that's a simplistic example of where I'm starting to inject AI into my workflow. Then building presentations, the working with my design team and all of that's multiple iterations. I could collaborate with Claude in terms of Claude understands my way I talk and my voice now. So whenever I need to present anything, I would work with Claude. I use Whisperflow.
That's great.
Talk to Claude. These are my ideas, and I basically ideate, use that as a sparring partner to create an outline. Then I have a Gamma connector. I can do that through GTM Buddy also. So where I would funnel that outline that I build through that interactive sparring conversations to build out a presentation. So some things that used to take me days of effort in terms of, create a deck, create some write-up, share it with a designer, and they misinterpret sometimes, all of that going away.
Wow.
Research projects that I have in terms of started looking at co-work and co-work releases and global stock markets crash. Why? Getting deeper into it, that got me deeper into Cloud Code. The reason why co-work is good at what it does, one of the main reason is it has access to my folders on my laptop, where I can manage far more context than I can manage in a thread.
Right.
Now, that same power, if I go to Cloud Code, it gives me even more power in terms of what I can do, even compared to Cloud Cowork. Cloud Cowork is at the end of the day a veneer on top of Cloud Code. So that got me into, after many years, I reinstalled my IDE, went back to the terminal, and terminal has become my de facto way of interacting with LLMs today. And I have folders for every project that I'm running, and all of my context is in there. And in every folder, I've got Claude listening into it. I also have Codex into it. And I have this sparring between me, the human, and Claude and Codex, all of them collaborating as three people on building on those ideas. All of these things have happened over the past 6 months. Every weekend, I have some project in mind that I want to work on, and I'm not into writing that code as much. I can ask Cloud, go write this code, take this and do all of that. Start with a problem first mindset. Don't hesitate to ask AI to write code for you. Do whatever you need to do. This is my goal. Be goal oriented in the conversations. Get over that initial blocker of getting back to the terminal. Those are things that really, really help me in terms of getting into the trenches.
I agree so much with that. I went from using Cursor really extensively to write all my code to using Claude Code and Codex in the terminal almost overnight, it felt like. I had used them before, mostly in the web UI to, solve some little GitHub issues and stuff like that. But then when they started kind of blowing up on Twitter, I was like, yeah, I guess I should try it out on the terminal now. And I have never looked back. It's just, it's such a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to
So-
work this way.
I know.
So when I'm
It's
talking to
addicting.
other CEOs,
It
Spencer,
is.
like the moment I use the word cloud code, they think that, okay, this guy was a CTO, he's a geek, so he's doing some stuff. No, 95% of the work that I work with cloud code, my work with cloud code is business oriented. It's about researching, ideating on where we are going as a business, could be competitive analysis, could be analyzing the strategy, critiquing on that. It's 95% business stuff. It's just that I'm
Right.
using a terminal as opposed to using a chat.
So
UI.
so it has access to your business data. Is that what you're saying? And you can use it to analyze data,
Mhm.
build assumptions,
Yep.
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have built our own MCP as part of our revenue activation platform. We have built an MCP, okay?
Okay.
And MCP is something that, if you read the hype equation of this, so MCP was this golden thing, and now if you search for MCP is dead, you would see so many people talking about MCP is dead. They would say agents are gold and the agents are dead. Skills are the the new thing. All of that hype equation aside, so the MCP that we have, it gives me access to the data in GTM Buddy. It also gives me access to all the integration that we have built
Mhm.
to
Right.
call recording tools like Gong, to our CRM, and to our support ticketing system, and so on. So in Cloud Code environment, I'm able to connect to my MCP, my own MCP, or I could connect with each of these MCPs separately. I'm able to pull in that data into my conversations.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
no more just chatting about some abstract ideas and stuff. It's with my business data.
Yeah.
Using that.
So huge. Yeah.
It's kind of a psychedelic feeling in a lot of ways. Just watching it work through the files on your computer and gather information. I will say the funny thing is every now and then it is a little bit stupid about finding folders. You'll give it like a folder name specifically. Like this happens to me all the time. I'm like, hey, there's a piece of code in this repository that I want you to go look at. Here is the exact repository name. Search for that repository. And then it comes back 5 minutes later. It's like, that, I don't know where that is, man. That's not on this computer. I'm like, yes, it is. Like, go back. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's right there. Never mind. And so it's funny that even as they have gotten so powerful and so strong, that they do continue to have funny little failure cases that don't make a ton of sense to humans. But it almost makes me like them more. Like it's kind of it's a funny little quirk that I think that in some ways we'll miss when they finally, get over it.
Yeah, I think Spencer, you would really love to geek out with my co-founders, Santa and Money. Those are my tech people now. I'm not the tech guy. I'm the business guy. I don't work with GitHub at all. They refuse to give me access to our GitHub also. So they give me access to everything and all of that. But they talk about all the quirks that they deal with in terms of in the coding environment. What's it good at? Where is it failing them? How to fix that? What are the guardrails and all that?
Right. Which comes back to this idea of needing to stay apprised. Like, what the quirks of GPT 4.0 are very different from the quirks of GPT 5.6. And if I think a lot of people, especially 4.0, just had so many crazy stories with it. And I think that's stuck in a lot of people's minds of what the shortcomings of ChatGPT are and these hallucinations and the just crazy stories. And it's changed drastically. It's so different now. And the way you even prompt is very different from the way you used to prompt. And I think if we even if we come down to the basic prompting strategies, it's different now compared to 6 months ago. And it just moves so fast.
It's almost like, in B2B marketing, creation of prompt libraries was such a fad, and probably it continues to be that, people publishing like this 2-line thing, think, put on this hat of some role and help me answer this question. That used to be the prompt libraries that get published on LinkedIn all over. Many companies doing that. from there now, I could actually work with AI to write AI, including the writing prompts. I'm trying to get an answer to this to help me build the right prompt for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's also the wild side of this technology that we often touch on, is that it's self-bettering. You can use AI to better AI, which is what we're seeing with Claude. Like, they're using Claude to build the next iteration of Claude. And it's really spooky sometimes.
Yeah.
I prefer Codex to write my code. But sometimes I don't like interacting with Codex directly. And so what I do instead is I interact with Claude, and then I have Claude prompt Codex.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a whole chain going on. But I found it's really effective because I chat with Claude and I'm like, hey, I want to get X, Y, and Z done. Tell Codex to do it. And he's like, sick, I'll tell Codex to do that. And he kicks off 3 different Codex sub-agents, and they go and take care of it. Codex is a code monster, and it comes back, and then Claude is like, I'm going to tweak this and this, and then it gets back to me, and he's like, hey, it's done. I'm like, sweet, that was 3 times as fast as it would have been otherwise. It's an odd world. There's so many new workflows out there that a lot of people aren't aware of. And
yeah, even in my case, I'm asking, I do a research job on Claude, then I manually invoke in the same, I have terminal windows. So I need to hook them together. Thanks for that tip. I should be looking into it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that approach.
It's a lot of fun that way. A lot of fun to do.
Yeah. So, Sridhar, we've talked high level about AI and staying apprised, and I'm curious, because in addition to staying on the forefront of AI and trying to implement these strategies, you're running this business of GTM Buddy. And what did you identify in the business landscape and the strengths of AI that led to GTM Buddy?
Great. As you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur, 3rd company, and my previous company was Gainsight, which was about category creation, right? And coming into this company, I had my filters in terms of, what kind of company am I trying to build? One of the first things that I said is, I don't want to be creating a new category. That was something that I was very, very clear in my mind, because categorization is hard. And I'm not a marketer. I'm pushing myself. I'm a deeply introverted person who is pushing myself to be out there, including this podcast. Given a choice, I probably would be doing my stuff, not be on.
Well, we're glad you're here.
So anyway, so not create a category. But another reason for that, there are a lot of companies that start off, including AI native, not AI native, doesn't matter. Everybody wants to create a category because it's so sexy. It looks so glamorous, right?
Right.
But you start creating a category, and that category, if you're successful, you survive. And if you survive, you probably might become a big fish in a very small pond. That pond is like a $10 million market, $20 million market. Yep, you're 15 million in that.
Right.
But is that going to get you and your team where you want to be in terms of an outcome?
Right.
So I didn't want to be in that. So it said like, okay, let me pick a category that's $1 billion or more.
Okay.
And there is an opportunity to disrupt the market. That led me to enablement as a category. And a little bit of context on what is enablement. Enablement is basically content management, where I'm creating a content library like a SharePoint library or a Google Drive library, except that this library is for the revenue teams. And that library, I will take the content and I will manually tag the content. This was when we getting started 2021 timeframes. I would manually tag that content, call it content properties, tags, whatever name you give it. Then my promise is that, your salespeople, you're creating all this great content, your salespeople are not using it. And content discovery problem, search and discovery problem for your internal content. Therefore, you need to tag the content and organize the content so that people are able to discover it and hopefully they use it. This was the status quo. Market size, close to $1 billion. Seismic, HighSpot, Showpad, Big Tin Can, just those 4 companies adding to $1 billion. Go to G2 or talk to any customer. What's working, what is not working? Search is broken. I can't find the content. That
Right.
told us something there. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a problem statement here. Like these are objectively can go back to 2020, 21, 22, or even now. Go to
Yeah.
G2 reviews of these platforms, large platforms, with due respect. One of the areas that you're frustrated about, I can't find content in a content platform. That got us into,
Seems. Yeah.
this was pre-chat GPT era. We said,
Yeah.
okay, NLU layers, we had familiarity with language understanding and sentiment modeling and all of that. I got my co-founder Money back into the mix here. He was my data scientist at Gainsight. And we started building out an ontological foundation of the language model. Fancy way of saying, okay, you are a company, you have your unique
Yeah.
business terminology. Okay, we built a ontology layer about your business terminology, your acronyms or slang that you use in your industry.
Yeah.
We built a layer of language, the words
Yeah.
collections, if you will, where the searching would understand your slang. Okay.
Interesting.
So, for example,
Okay.
if you say SFDC, it knows that you're talking about Salesforce here. You
Yeah.
talk about Einstein, you're not talking about Albert Einstein. You're talking about Salesforce's Einstein.
Right.
Okay. So
Okay.
those are some trivial examples of what I was trying to say. Then with that, we started building out the semantic search models that is equipped with an ontological layer that we built, solving the problem of search. How do we get
Yeah.
our current search to be way better than what it is in the industry? Okay, that was the first thing that I invested in. The second thing, okay, I'm searching. The search still expects that somebody is coming into your content platform and searching for stuff. And revenue teams, or especially sellers, or at least enablement people, say that they're notoriously lazy. I can't contend with that, but they don't come and search. You need to deliver that stuff to them in their workflow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what we call revenue activation. Where we started saying, okay, I'm in email, I'm in Slack. How do I deliver this stuff to the rep? How do I help the rep to prepare for a meeting that they're getting into? Now, when we started thinking about that, you start thinking about, okay, for a meeting, you need to build a context in terms of who are you meeting? Why are you meeting? The who and the why, and to build that context, what are you selling? And all of those things. Get all of that context from the CRM. And there's a context engineering layer that we built, slap in a recommendation engine on top of it. These are all pre-Gen AI things, right? They're
Yeah.
still legitimate today. A recommendation engine in Spotify or Netflix, we take it for granted. There are recommendation engines still at play here, where we would recommend, take that context, look at all of the content that's in the system. We surface information like, what customer stories should you narrate to your prospective buyer that resonate with them?
Yeah.
What do you we built a persona resolution engine wherein taking an email, we can identify, okay, this represents a marketing persona, a product marketing persona versus a demand gen persona. He is a mid-level sales persona, whatever, based on the title. So that's again classification model that gives us the persona resolution engine. Now, for the persona resolution engine, what are the questions that you are likely to expect? So the recommendation engine will come into play. So we built all of this stuff pre-ChatGPT, okay?
Yeah.
And so that was our initial go-to-market. Far better search than anything else that you have seen in other enablement platforms. Content delivered to you, information delivered to you in your workflows, as opposed to going and searching for information. Keep it contextually relevant. And we started calling it activation of revenue enablement, which now currently rephrasing it to revenue activation.
Love that.
Then ChatGPT happens. So whatever we were doing, all of this thing, it was like science fiction. People would say, you're this tiny little company and you're talking about SaaS, which is that like $350 million company. And you're saying that your search is better than what they could build in a decade.
You're like, yeah, for sure.
Okay, come give us your content, check it out. And so we went through that. And we have replaced the Seismics and HighSpots, which are the top two at multiple customers. We were successful with that. But once the ChatGPT came in, the conversation, the context, or the contours of the conversation started changing. People all of a sudden said, okay, there's something happening here. AI awareness grow. And from a product possibilities perspective, there are a lot of other things that we started doing in terms of, the speech to text problem that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That Gong had solved uniquely well in the middle of 2014-15 timeframes. Now, speech to text and text to speech both have improved. Now, that opens up a possibility for doing something called role plays. So we have a role play capability where for training the salespeople on a business objection handling scenario, or how do you do a discovery call? How do you end the calls with the next steps and demonstrating active listening and all of that? You need to train people. So I could combine these technology evolutions, including the speech to text. You're basically practicing with a bot. So just the way we are talking as human to human, you're practicing with a bot. That's a role play. And you want to make it as realistic as possible. So when you're having this conversation, we need to get the bot to speak, and bot should understand what I'm saying, and the bot being AI. So my words need to be converted into text, and that is sent to the bot, the LLMs. They understand and respond to it. They respond in text. How do you convert this into a real life voice, not like a robotic voice? And these are possibilities that have opened like all of a sudden in the past 2 years. It's been like Alice in the Wonderland kind of a scenario. If you are a builder, right? So many things which are really, really hard to build are now available to, no offense intended, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, including me.
Yeah.
No, I'm very fond of saying. Yeah, I'm very fond of saying about like whenever my CEO at work is like, "Oh man, great work, Spence." I'm like, "Listen, like anyone could build this. I need to emphasize that. Like I have to be the person who built it, but like we need to be clear about what we're building. Anyone could build this. Our moat is elsewhere." So I'm really curious. Going back slightly, you mentioned that you modeled the kind of the core information representation problem as an ontology approach. What led you to that approach versus anything else? So it seems really elegant to me, and it immediately struck me as an interesting idea, and a strong core to build further AI features on top of it. But obviously, you decided on that long before ChatGPT was even a glimmer in OpenAI's eye, right?
Yeah. So the ontology is something that we started digging into the business problem the way people are saying it, right? In their words, plain English, not technical stuff. What are they saying? Set is broken. When they say set is broken, what do they really mean by it? With due respect to Seismic and Highspot, they were valued in the heydays at $3 to $5 billion. So these are not trivial companies. They're smart people and all of that, right? So when people their end users are saying that search is broken, we started digging into what do they mean by it. Now you get into the variations of search. What the user expectations are that the search engine works like it's my internal search system. It's not Google or anything. It knows my acronyms, if you will. We use these phrases in this. These phrases mean specific thing in my business. That was a recurring thing. Whereas the search engines were like, you throw in all content, take the content, take the tags, and throw it into any of the search platforms out there, and you generate results. Keyword-based search was pretty popular. It will give you a lot of random results. Whereas people were looking for intent. If I'm searching for something like an Einstein, I want to compete with Einstein, position lean against Einstein, let's say. Now, Einstein there should be Salesforce in that example. Okay, if in my world, you don't need to worry about lists or list groups. That positioning, like in my world, it says that you're talking about Highspot. Highspot talks about tagging, and their tagging terminology is list and list groups. So as a rep, it might come into in a sales conversation. A prospect says that, we have spent so much time in terms of organizing our lists and list groups. The rep should know that it's about Highspot. They're using Highspot, and they should talk about, you should not be requiring to spend that time. So those are some concrete examples of, the mere understanding of, if I say search anything for list is such a common word. List group. So it can mean anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the context of GTM Buddy, a list group would mean a competitor, high spot. And in that competition, we're talking about a particular capability or requirement to tag content, which is so
Mhm.
yesteryear. You don't need to be doing that now. So
Got
that's
it.
where that ontology foundation came in, Spencer. Am I making sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. My my dad had a long career in startups, and for a long time, the one that he ran was a document retrieval and tagging service, and so for enterprise. And so
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
am
yeah.
somewhat roughly familiar with how deep and thorny that overall endeavor is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right on the money there. Yeah.
Wow.
It's fascinating how many different approaches there are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so Sridhar, does that mean you're building an ontologic layer for each customer?
Yeah.
I
So
understood that
each
right,
customer,
correctly?
yeah, yeah, yes. For each customer, that layer is for each customer, and that
Hmm.
layer, like AI building AI itself, right now, we can look at the company's context and their own content to build that layer, and we can show it to
Yeah.
them. These seem to be your unique vocabulary.
Yeah.
Confirm. Yeah.
Yep.
So
I bet that's for some companies surprising when they see that. Oh, interesting.
Didn't realize we used
Um,
that word that much.
yeah,
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 exactly. And
yeah,
are you using AI to build that layer now? Are you
yeah.
using, okay.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
what does that process look like?
So it's basically as part of our integration, we would get ingest all the content from any content repository that exists.
Hmm.
We have content on Confluence, Notion. We have the MCP connectivity
Okay.
as an MCP client. We pull that content in, and then we trigger. We call it an auto indexing job that runs,
Okay.
basically, which goes through the existing enterprise content and indexes it. Indexes it is a fancy way of saying, we are doing the chunking and building the rack
Hmm.
pipelines and tagging the content and all of
Yeah,
that.
that's big.
Uh, coming up with the ontological layer, which is what are the unique terms in your business.
Got it.
That includes like what's your product terminology versus who are your competitors, what is their terminology,
Wow.
and use case terminology and all of that layer getting built out. So it's all backend process that gets triggered as soon as the content is ingested.
That's
And the
awesome.
key is not even it's all like nobody should be needing to worry about that stuff. Our core focus is activating revenue. What we mean by
Right.
that, how do you use this information and
Right.
the unstructured and structured information that's coming in, like call transcripts, or like you get in, like a typical customer gets in a few hundred call transcripts a day.
Yeah.
And that's new information, new set of
Yeah.
objections, new information around identifying skill gaps, uh, helping the reps to elevate their performance and stuff like that, right? So it's an engine that's
Yeah.
continually running. It opens up a world of possibilities. Uh,
Yeah. And this is so exciting to me about AI because it changes data from a static repository to potentially being active. Like it's an agent is fundamentally different because it can self-identify gaps and provide a solution on its own. And
yep.
I think that is like, as humans, maybe it's like a pride thing. Like we want to figure it out ourselves. We want to reinvent the wheel sometimes and be the one to say like, I did
Mhm.
this. And they're like, oh, well, we already knew that from 10 years ago. But it feels good to be the one to figure it out. But now with this solution, it's active. Like if I were given relevant data from this agent that then helped me close this deal or like whatever it is, that would be, I mean, like life changing for that sales rep too. All of a sudden, that sales rep
Mhm.
is closing more deals. Like the trickle down effect is incredible.
Yep.
And it all comes from this new aspect of technology that is much more lifelike. It's not there yet as far as a living organism, but it's
Yeah.
getting very close.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, and I was going to say something similar, Jake, which is right along those lines. That people kind of underestimate how many business insights are only actionable within a certain time frame, right? And sometimes those time frames are really really short, and AI agents get us closer and closer to being able to hit every single one of those time frames, rather than just like, hey, I can hit these time frames consistently. We're going to get to a world where a customer is experiencing an outage and they have it fixed 2 seconds later because an AI agent noticed it, right? Like it's a crazy, crazy world we're headed for. And I don't know if people have fully reckoned with it yet. So on that note, Sridhar, you mentioned that you are somewhat concerned for the younger generations who are maybe not as enthused about trying out AI. What advice would you give to, potentially anyone who's from that younger generation listening to this podcast right now?
I think taking charge of, I was giving an example of my own two boys that I have and how I bored them to death about the importance of taking charge of their own learning. And I think I'm even more worried, Spencer, about the people who are in their 30s and 40s right now.
Yeah.
So I probably would work for another decade after GTM Buddy. Probably I want to hang up my boots and retire, hopefully. But the younger generation who are people who are in their late 20s, 30s, they're living in a new normal overnight.
Yeah.
And not many seem to be realizing that. And everybody is waiting for permission from the organization to do stuff, or a level of commitment to invest their own personal time into learning. So looking at AI learning as something that, it's my job chore that needs to be done, as opposed to something that I need to take charge of. And I'm doing it for myself and not for somebody else. That mindset is something that I'm super concerned about. And barring some exceptions, the general use case or general perception of AI usage, everybody is using AI, but they're using it for an alternative to Google.
Right.
Yeah. Open your minds.
Yeah. I think that the way I keep saying it is that people need to know what time it is. They need to check their watch. Work is changing, guys. And there's a lot to be said for making space for people's grief and whatnot, and allowing people to feel frustrated by some of the changes, because that's totally valid. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that every single change that comes with AI is comfortable and is going to be comfortable. And I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't have, that AI doesn't have negative externalities as well as positive externalities. But we have to reckon with reality, right? Like it's happening, and if you invest yourself in using it, there's a better chance of us. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a better chance of us all using it in the right ways rather than the wrong ways. Because I keep seeing the thing that drives me crazier than everything is I see people who are complaining about AI. They're anti-AI. And I sit here and I'm like, okay, if you really believe that AI is this disastrous and impossible, this if you really believe it's this disastrous, why are you not trying harder to figure out how to leverage it for your political beliefs at least? You don't actually believe in anything, guy. I'm sorry to get on my soapbox here, but I'm convinced that some of these people, they don't actually believe in anything. If they actually had the political beliefs or the personal beliefs that they hold, they would be approaching AI completely differently. It's everybody wants to be right, and no one wants to take the time to figure out if they are right or not.
If I may add to that, Spencer, is it's almost like the people who think that AI is the enemy, just adopt that principle of know the enemy. Know the enemy, right?
Exactly. So it's if you really hate it this much,
all the more reason
you should get to know it so that you can argue against it better and convince me, somebody who's pro AI, maybe you have a better chance of convincing me to not use it if you actually understand the technology, right?
Totally.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, truly.
I know what time it is.
Check the watch. Yep. Sridhar, we're very grateful for you coming on and taking the time. This has been wonderful. If our listeners want to follow you, want to follow GTM Buddy, what are the best ways for them to do that?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Sreedhar Peddineni, and website is gtmbuddy.ai. Thank you so much for hosting me, Jacob and Spencer. Truly enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, this was a pleasure.
And you're part of the AI Rebels family now, so we'll definitely keep tabs on GTM Buddy and all you're doing over there. That'll be great.
Thank you so much.